boys and girls. It's then tempting to speculate that, we go one step further back and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. That's stupid. It had to be designed, okay? Time, space, matter had to come into existence at the same time. People say, what did God do before the creation? I say, well, your question assumes that God is locked into time. It's a poor question. There's no answer for it because the question's no good. It's like asking me, why are elephants orange? They're not, okay? And the question, what did God do before the creation, tells me that you're thinking about the wrong God. See, the God that I worship is not affected by time, space, matter. This is not 2005 in heaven. There's no time there. And an angel's going to fly by one day in the book of Revelation, and it says there shall be time no longer. First thing you do, you get to heaven, take off your watch and flip it over to the side. You won't need that anymore. So before the creation, there was no time, and after God's done with this little experiment, there's going to be no more time. So once upon a time, there was a time when there was no time. Think about that one. So everything came from nothing. That's stupid. But that's what the kids are going to be taught in the school, and this is the mission field. Your mission is to seek them out, find them, and give them some common sense. Okay? Open up their mind and pour just a little bit of intelligent thought in there, okay? They say this nebula began to rotate. The dot began to spin faster and faster. Oh, it was spinning, and finally it exploded. Big bang. Well, if you put a bunch of kids on the merry-go-round and get it spinning clockwise as fast as it'll possibly go, you notice some very interesting phenomena. Okay? In phase one, the kids start screaming at the football players spinning the thing, saying, come on, let's go, faster, faster. You get up around 30 miles an hour. Phase two, they stop screaming. They just quietly concentrate on trying to hang on. You get up around 60 miles an hour, and they start enter phase three, where they begin screaming again. No, they stop, stop, please slow down. Don't stop, though. Go faster and faster. At about 100 miles an hour, they go to phase four, where they begin to fly off the merry-go-round. And that's when you notice something interesting. If the merry-go-round is spinning clockwise, when the kid flies off, the kid will be spinning clockwise until he encounters resistance, like a tree or pole. That's because of a law known as the conservation of angular momentum. A spinning object that breaks apart will have all of the pieces spinning the same direction. It's because the outside's moving faster than the inside. Okay, it's got farther to go. Well, we could talk a long time about that, but if everything began as a swirling dot, everything ought to be spinning the same way, and yet Venus and Uranus rotate backwards. 8 of the 91 known moons in the universe spin backwards. 3 planets have moons going both directions at the same time. Some whole galaxies are spinning backwards. CNN ran an article, goofy galaxy spins in wrong direction. The Bible says God created the heaven and the earth. Evolution says it all came from a big bang. It spun faster and faster and exploded. I'm sorry, that's stupid. That violates the laws of science. And somebody's got to get some common sense into these kids. Cosmic evolution, that's stupid. It didn't happen. Then the textbook says, as the earth formed, the surface was hot, and there was large pools of lava. Well, was the earth really a hot molten mass like the kids are going to be taught? The Bible says the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Somebody's wrong. Was it a hot molten mass like the textbook says? Or was it underwater like the Bible says? Well, Robert Gentry, I'd like to get him to come and speak at our conference one of these days too. He's a good friend of mine from Knoxville, Tennessee. One of the world's experts on the disposal of radioactive materials. Studied granite samples all over the world. He found they have little tiny radiopolonium halos in them. The polonium has a half-life of from 164 thousandths of a second up to 3 minutes, depending on which one you're using. To form this little halo in the rock and then freeze it, the rock had to be cold. It was never a hot molten mass. Very fascinating story behind that. To teach that these polonium halos can exist while the rock is molten is ludicrous. If the rock is hot, it may form its little halo, but it's going to disappear. How many of the 4th of July fireworks halos, from the things exploding, how many of them are still up in the sky right now? None. They fell down because the sky is too fluid. These little halos are proof positive the Earth was never a hot molten mass. As soon as Gentry published in all kinds of major science journals until somebody says, hey guys, wait, do you realize what this implies? This means our Big Bang theory is wrong. They shut him off like a spigot, turned off his grant money, didn't publish any more articles from him. Go to halos.com if you want to get all the lowdown on that one. To say the earth was a hot molten mass, I'm sorry, the evidence is against that. That's stupid. Now, you might want it to start off that way, but there's a lot of reasons for that. To talk about chemical evolution, everything came from hydrogen. Atoms of hydrogen in the proto-sun fused to form helium. That's stupid. You can fuse them to get helium, but you got a chicken and an egg problem here. You got to have the stars to produce the fusion, and you got to have all the elements to make the stars. Which one came first? One of the questions I asked to the university professors the first time I went out, they never used it. I said, termites chew on wood and swallow it, but they can't digest it. They've got little tiny critters that live inside their intestines. You talk about tiny, we're talking inside the termite's intestines, okay? The termite cannot live without those little critters, and them critters can't live outside the termite. So which one evolved first? And how did it live without the other one? They never used that question either. But to say all the elements came from hydrogen, I'm sorry, that's stupid. It's lacking normal intelligence. It doesn't happen, okay? Fusion can take place, but you got the chicken and an egg problem here. We'll get into that some other time. To say the stars evolved, I'm sorry, that's lacking normal intelligence. God had to design the stars. They're so complex. We could spend 2 days on the Big Bang theory, but to say that it happened by chance, Big Bang made a big orderly universe, I'm sorry, that's stupid. Big Bangs make big messes. It's all they've ever done. You know, a star explodes about every 30 years, called a nova, or if it's a big one, they call it a supernova. Why do we have less than 300 supernova rings that have been discovered in the universe? One's exploding every 30 years. That's only a few thousand years worth of stars. They say, well, new stars are forming in Crab Nebula. Don't see those new stars forming right there? No, sorry. New stars are not forming. Nobody has a clue how a star can form. We don't know how a single one of these stars managed to form. Now, if you want to believe they formed, that's fine. I don't care what you believe, but it's not science. Nobody's ever observed a star forming. By the way, we see stars blow up every 30 years. We've never seen one form. Don't you think the births of stars should at least equal the deaths of stars? Aren't we eventually going to run out? I debated a professor one time, and he said, Hovind, we were talking about stars forming. I said, don't you know that you got a problem with Boyle's gas law, because when you try to squeeze dust together, the pressure and temperature builds up and it drives it back apart. I said, it would take enormous pressure to squeeze gas into a solid. He said, yes. And we calculated that if 20 stars explode near each other, it would provide enough pressure to make a brand new star. I said, sir, that is brilliant. You have to lose 20 to gain 1. I said, you ought to run for Congress. You could help those guys borrow their way out of debt. You think losing a star every 30 years is going to end up getting you 70 sextillion stars? 11 trillion per person? I'm sorry, that's stupid. It's not going to work, okay? Planets are cooling off. They can't be billions of years old. Jupiter's cooling off. Ganymede's cooling off. It's hot. It's got a magnetic field. To say it's billions of years old is stupid. Saturn's rings are expanding. They're moving away from the planet. They're losing the rings. It can't be billions of years old. To say it is just stupid. It's not lacking normal intelligence. It's not. The moon is going around the Earth, but the moon is gradually getting farther from the Earth. We're losing the moon a couple inches a year, which means, of course, it used to be, closer. Well, if you bring the moon in closer, you got a real problem, because the moon creates the tides. Some of you folks don't live in Pensacola, and so you don't worry about the tides, but around here you worry about the tides. If you bring the moon in closer, the tides would be much higher. There's a law called the inverse square law. If you brought